It's man like that. Come on! Welcome to Melanated Proud. I'm on a journey to showcase, inspire, and empower the black community. So if you're new to the channel and want to follow this journey, subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, welcome back and thank you for the support. In the last episode, I showed you around the Black Farmer shop, but this time round, we're having a proper sit down, a proper conversation with the founder, Wilfred Emmanuel Jones, the Black Farmer, to actually find out more about his journey.
Like I was saying before, a black farmer in the UK is not something that I'm familiar with. And so what I want to know as well is what made you become a farmer in the first place? Why didn't you pursue another career, or did you pursue another career?
So, just to give you a bit of backstory, so I was born in Jamaica, and I was born in a place called Clarendon, Frankville, Clarendon, which is right in the heart of Jamaica. And you know, you'd find a lot of farmers working there. I'm from a rural background. When my parents came here, they settled in Birmingham, Small Heath in Birmingham. I then followed. And there's 11 of us in my family. We lived in one of those 2 up, 2 down terrace houses.
11, wow.
Yes, 11. So you can imagine how crammed it is. I just wanted to say hello to you, but I'll talk to you in a bit later, okay? Okay. Actually, yeah, could you do some filming of this? Okay. So yeah, I was saying there's 11 of us in my family, 2 up, 2 down terrace house. And as a way of supplementing the family income, my father had an allotment, and it was my responsibility as the oldest boy to look after this allotment. And I loved being in this allotment so much that I made myself a promise that one day I would like to own my own farm.
Oh, wow. And
then every single thing I did in my life was to try and get into a position to be able to own my own farm. Now, it took me about 25, 30 years to do it. So I say to young people, if you want anything in life, you've got to dream early, because it takes a shitload of time to achieve it. But that's basically where the idea of having a farm came from working on my dad's allotment.
Okay, so in terms of education as well, how was that for you, like growing up, going to school? Did you know that you didn't want to pursue that sort of field?
Well, my education is pretty appalling. I'm dyslexic. Okay. I left school without any qualifications at all. And for me, school was a nightmare. It was just absolutely a failure. I could hardly read and write, and so I didn't really have much choices because I didn't have the sort of brain that could be sort of educated in that particular way. So when I left school, I joined the army, not because I had any interest in becoming a soldier, because I couldn't think of anything else to do. But that didn't work. I got kicked out of the army because you can imagine in those days, being a black guy who's mouthy, there's 1 or 2 things that's going to happen. You're either going to knuckle down and do as you're told, or you're going to get your head kicked in and chucked out. And you can imagine, I got my head kicked in and chucked me out. So the only qualification that I have to my name is a dishonorable discharge from the army.
Oh, wow.
So you could see that from a very, very early age, everything you would predict would happen to somebody like me from my sort of background, I seem to be going on that sort of path really of failure. And in those days, if you were a failure at everything, they just thought, you know what, stick them into catering. So I went to the catering college and I trained to be a chef. And I worked as a chef for a while, but you know, nowhere glamorous, you know, breakfast chef, peeling spuds and things like that. That's how I started.
Okay, so even before, you mentioned to me that you've got a farm in Devon, you said?
In Devon, yeah. Devon Corn Border, yeah.
So owning land in general is not easy and it's not cheap. Yeah. And so how did you invest?
How did I manage to do it?
How did you manage to do it? Like, was you in a rich job, from a rich family? Like, how did you do it?
No. We are poor, we're dirt poor. And everything about my story is about the ability to be audacious. And I believe that if you are prepared to be audacious, you set your mind to something, you could do whatever you want. Just to finish off your story, right? Just to finish off my story. I told you that I joined the army, I got kicked out of the army, I then went into catering. And because I always had this dream to one day own my own farm, it was a driving force for everything that I did. And I can remember thinking, well, you're never going to earn enough money being a chef in order to buy your farm, so you're going to have to think of something else to do. And then in those days, there was this very famous BBC series called 40 Minutes, that made social documentaries. And I can remember announcing to my family and friends, you know what, I'm going to get a job in the BBC making programs. And they all looked at me as I was mad, and rightly so, because most of the people who work for television are from Oxbridge, Cambridge, pretty well educated. But one of the things about being dyslexic is that you think outside the box. You think about how can you do things differently. And I persevered, did all the classic stuff, sending in CVs, ringing letters. Nobody would take my calls, nobody would answer my letters. At the time, and this is where audacity plays a really important part. There used to be a big studio in Birmingham called Pebblemill Studios, and they had the old-fashioned security guards that would sort of lift barriers to let people in and out of the building. And I can remember going up to the security guards and saying, look, can I help you lift these barriers, letting people in and out of the building? And they said, well, yes, because it wasn't costing them. So I did that for months. From there, I then met the cleaners who were going in to clean the offices. So I asked them whether I could come and help them clean the offices. And they said yes. So I cleaned the offices. And then this happened. And one of the things I always say to people is that what you've got to try in life is to find your guardian angels. Find those people who are going to give you a break to help you achieve your dreams. And I met a guy, his name was Jock Gallagher, some senior guy at the BBC. And I said, look, I want to get in television, I want to be a researcher and things like that. And he took me up to his office and he says, look, we don't give people like you jobs in television because you don't have the education.
He said that?
Yeah. So you don't have the education and you don't have the, you got a bit of an attitude problem. But he said, look, what I'll do is that I'll give you a 3-month contract as a runner to see what happens. Now that man giving me that break then started a long career in television. Without that break, I would never ever have got into TV. And every single stage of my development, somebody has gone out of their way to give me a break. So the key thing I say to people is that you can't do this thing on your own, is that go and find the people that will help you achieve the things that you want to achieve. And you won't find those people unless you're prepared to put it out there, and they will come. And so I, worked as a researcher and then went on to be a producer, director. And back in the day, I was pretty well known for making a program called the Food and Drink Program. And that program was the sort of start of the celebrity chef culture. So I gave people like Gordon Ramsay his first break in television, James Martin, any big celebrity chef. It was my job to sort of break them in. And I traveled the world making films about food and drink. And then, again, that dream of owning my own farm was constantly nagging at me, saying, well, it's a pretty glamorous job, but you ain't going to earn the money in order to buy this farm. And I knew the only way that I was going to earn this money was to leave the BBC and to start up my own business. Lots of people have grand ideas of starting their own business, and the one thing that stops them doing it is fear of what may happen. And so many people's dreams are crushed by fear. But I decided that if I didn't take this leap, it's something that I would absolutely regret. So I left the BBC and I started my own food and drink marketing agency. So we launched brands like Lloyd Grosson sauces, Kettle Chips, Plymouth Gin, and then that gave me the money to buy my farm.
Oh, okay.
So it took me 30 years.
30 years, wow.
To do it.
Well, you stayed motivated, you knew what you wanted.
Exactly.
Stayed tunnel vision and you didn't stop.
And that's by having a dream in the first place. Most people you say to them, what do you want to do in your life? They have no idea at all. But there's a single vision to own my own farm.
Wow. So, if you don't mind me asking, do you think that investment paid off then?
I mean, I think the thing is that the thing that drives me is to make an impact. If you're black, you understand what it's like to be disadvantaged and what it is not to have opportunity. That's why when I have had opportunity, I'm really grateful. And actually, my job, having had opportunities, how can I make an impact? And when I bought the farm, the first thing I realized, there are no black people at all. In Devon, there are no black people at all. Most people there have never met black people. There's no understanding. And if we want to be a truly diverse country, we have to start being part of rural Britain. And if I am the pathfinder, the person that's going to start that journey, I'm happy to do that.
Wow. So I don't know if you want to answer this next question, but I've read somewhere, but do you want to say how much the organisation's worth now, your brand?
Well,
considering
So we turn over about 10 million a year. 10 million a year, so yeah. And so that's what we turn over, and the brand value would be about 15, 20 million. You know,
Did you foresee this happening from the beginning, or you just go with the flow?
No. And I think what happens, we live in an age where people are sort of motivated by money. You know, money is meaningless unless you have a purpose. The most important thing in life is to have a purpose. So if I won the lottery tomorrow, I wouldn't change what I'm doing. Money would just help me to facilitate it much speedier. So that's the way I look at life, is that actually live the life you want to do, and money will just help to enhance it. Most people think, well, I can't do what I want to do because I don't have the money. That's just a cop-out.
It's true. And so, do you feel like, because I know you mentioned it before about fear being a thing that holds people back, what advice you give to those people that are being bound by fear right now because they're afraid that the very risk that they want to take could end up being a regret for them?
Well, I think there's a book that I've written, so if anybody wants to hear more about my thoughts, they should buy this book. And it's called Jeopardy, The Danger of Playing It Safe. And the biggest problem that people have in life, they're all in search of certainty. And I know there's only one thing that's certain in this life, only one thing, and that is that life is uncertain. Once you accept the fact that life is uncertain and that whatever planning, whatever thing you do, forget it, it's never going to happen. And so how do you manage to live in a world of uncertainty? Well, you manage to do that by saying, I do not know what the future holds. I do not know what lays ahead. But whatever I find, whatever I come across, I will find a way of actually making it through. It's about like having the mindset to say, look, it's a waste of time being fearful. It's a waste of time looking for certainty. It's just that whatever comes along, I can't even predict it, I will find a way. And if you have that mindset, it then opens up all the opportunities for you.
Wow. Powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Very powerful. You heard that, yeah? So one thing I want to say as well is that it sounds like you've gone through a lot of challenges as well.
Yeah.
Life hasn't been easy for you in the area of finance, but in other forms as well, you face a lot of challenges. So would you like to talk a bit more about that, like the impact that's had on you?
I mean, one of the things that, another mega part of my story is about, some 10 years ago, I got diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. Anybody who gets diagnosed with that, it's almost like a death sentence. And the only cure is a stem cell transplant. And the doctor said to me, look, you know, you've got one or two choices, that we either go home and you die within 3 months, or we try and do a stem cell transplant. But because of my age, there are a lot of risk factors, and there was no certainty that that would work. And then you need to find a donor, somebody where is a match. And because I've got so many brothers and sisters, they thought, oh, one of them would be a match. Not one of them was a match.
Not one?
Not one of them was a match. And then what they do is that they go and then do a worldwide search. They couldn't find a match there. But luckily, you know, they've just done some recent research into another type of treatment called a haplotransplant. And they thought, well, he's going to die anyhow, so we might as well sort of try it. And the reason I'm here is because it worked. And I'm here today because of science, timing. If I'd had this condition 5-10 years previously, I'd be dead. And then one of the consequences of having that stem cell transplant is something they call graft versus host disease. So if you look at my skin, you see that you've got vitiligo all over there. And that's a blessing, because every day I look in the mirror, I'm reminded that you're only here because of, you know, good science. And therefore, most people that are fearful of the small stuff, you're able to get rid of all the white noise of living. Life involves a massive amount of white noise. And when you're being on, you know, death's door, you work out what's important and what isn't. And 99% of what you worry about are not important. So you focus on the things that are important to you. That's fundamentally the gift of surviving.
So when you went through all of those difficulties, and even some of those battles you're facing now, have you ever felt like giving up?
Yes, I mean, I think that when I was at my worst during the illness, you know, I just thought, actually, death is better than this. And what it also taught me is this, is that never give up on hope. Never give up on hope. Because whilst you leave an opening for hope, miracles happen. And, you know, that, and out of that, the pain that we go through in life, there are teachers. They're there to teach us things that we need to learn and grow and develop in ourselves. So you only know if you're living by what I say is about the mistakes you make, the pain that you have. That is the indication that you're living a life. If you think, well, I've never made a mistake, that's telling you that you're slumming it. You're not living life. You're just, you know, you're slumming it. And what's the point of being alive if you're not going to learn and develop and grow? And that involves pain. Pain is a great teacher.
So what keeps you going?
Well, what I want to do is I want to leave a legacy. I want to make an impact. I want to be able to see that the time that I was on this planet, I did good. I did things of value. I made a difference in people's lives. That's what makes me wake up in the morning. I don't want to have, you know, big fancy car, house, they don't do anything for me. It's all about actually the impact that I make is the most important thing.
Because yeah, like you said, you've achieved a lot, even financially as well, but you're very humble as well. Yeah. That's one thing I noticed. Even just being around the shop, I see how people gravitate towards you. You are very caring, like you still got a heart to support, but you also, about your time, you want to make the most of the time you've got here as well. So that's one thing that I think is very inspiring. Like even when you get to the levels that you dreamed of, not to lose yourself, not to lose where you've come from and your values. And that's one thing that I've noticed.
Well, I know what it was like to grow hungry. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to be in society's dustbin heap. And I've been fortunate. And therefore, with that good fortune, my job is to help others on the way up.
So even in terms of the lack of representation in the field of farming, we don't have to limit to farming alone, but would you like to see more black people stepping into areas where there's a lack of representation?
I mean, that's part of what my success is, to open the doors for other black people. And what I say to black people is this, is that sometimes we forget that if you're black, there is something, not whether it's your parents or your grandparents, were very entrepreneurial to leave their country of origin to come to another country in order to better their lives and the lives of their children. For all the people who did that, most people didn't. So that clearly says that, you know, our parents, our grandparents are truly unique and remarkable people. It is our responsibility as the second and third generation to remind ourselves of that and to carry that forward rather than thinking that we are victims. Any black person that you'll see, they come from somebody who is courageous to leave everything to come to another country. I know I wouldn't do that. That's a pretty brave thing to do. You know? Yeah. But we just don't actually honor that.
Yeah, well, back to what you said about that uncertainty.
Yeah.
That's what you got to live on as well, because
exactly.
You can't always be certain. Nothing is certain.
The uncertainty, all the racism, all the prejudice, but they came to give us a better life, you know?
Yeah, it's true. And when you think about all your achievements, the prestigious platforms you've been on and the various people that you've met, what would you say has been one of your most proudest achievements? What achievement are you proud of the most?
Well, the thing that sticks out in my mind really is when I've got the farm. Because, you know, if you've been carrying a dream for 30 years and you suddenly get it, you know, there's a real feeling that actually I've arrived, of suddenly all the pain, all the angst has been worth it. So that was my proudest achievement.
And all the people that doubted you, did they manage to speak to you about, I don't know, your success? Did they celebrate you?
Well, one of the things I say to people is this, is that when you decide to live your own purpose, you have a choice to make. And actually the choice is this, is that do you want to be, do you want to belong or do you want to be? Now, people who want to belong have to accept the rules of the people around them. To be, you have to step out of that, and what you're going to have is a lot of people criticizing, a lot of people, you know, wishing your downfall. And so it's important that you realize that's part of the journey, and that actually the moment then you start to achieve, people will come your way, people will come and find you.
Even in terms of maintaining the level that you've got to, was that challenging as well? Because some people can get the very thing they wanted and lose it all. So how did you manage to keep things sustained, maintain, even just like your motivation?
And that's why, you know, you have to have a purpose in life. You know, it's amazing, you know, what having a purpose could do. It helps to drive you. And I always say to people is that the one thing you need in life is to have passion. Because passion defies logic, it defies reason. You know, people might say what you're doing is crazy, but it doesn't really matter. You are so driven that actually you defy all rational thinking. And that's a really important part of doing anything entrepreneurial. You know, you've got to be passionate.
Okay, so final words of encouragement for your brothers and sisters. Could be anything in your heart, doesn't have to be what we discussed today. Anything you want.
Final words of this is that I feel very lucky and very privileged to achieve the things that I've achieved in life. And mine is a remarkable story. And that the things that I've learned at my 66 years is that you can achieve anything that you want in life. Doesn't matter in your background, doesn't matter in your color, doesn't matter in your qualifications. The only thing that you need to have is actually to understand it's all in the mind. There's so much around to stop you actually thinking and caring about the things that matters to you. But if you could actually find some way of tapping in to your own mindset, that is a thing that brings about change. Don't wait for permission, wait for forgiveness. Just do what you believe to be the right thing.
Wow, that's powerful. And so where can people find you? How can they?
Well, I mean, I'd love them to come to the shop here because you can see it's a lovely, peaceful, contemplative space for people to come and say, right.
100%, it's very peaceful. I like the customers that you got here as well, and the local suppliers as well. Good vibe, that's what I'd say.
Well, thank you very much. It was really good chatting to you.
I'll add the address to the description as well, and I'll tag in your socials there.
Okay.
So make sure to support him. Share this video because he's obviously shared his life. His life hasn't been straightforward. It's been a journey, and it's one thing that we can all be inspired by. And this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I want to show you guys that there's more than just one path. There's paths that people have not even tapped into because of fear as well. And he's literally a living testimony of that. And he's gone through challenges as well, because a lot of people have excuses as well because of their difficulties, but you haven't been bound by your difficulties. You've persisted. And so, yeah, I was honestly want you guys to just take some notes and, just listen to what he said. Share this with someone that needs this as well, and support him and also support the channel as well so we can do more of this. Thank you
very much.